Welcome back to 504 Road Trips. Jason and Carrie have walked away from the recording desk for a few minutes, so I'm going to sneak in here and record this voiceover for this video. Let's see if they even notice. Let's see, where are we here? Oh yeah, we're continuing south on Interstate 95. I love this stretch of highway. We're heading south through New York State and through the city of New York in this video, picking up where we left off at the southern end of the Connecticut Turnpike in Greenwich. At the Byram River Bridge, we cross into New York State, the Empire State, which has a population of about 20 million per the 2020 census. New York is the fourth largest state in the country by population. The first interchange once we reach New York is for Interstate 287, the Cross-Westchester Expressway, which heads west from here over towards the city of White Plains and to meet Interstate 87 near the Hudson River. It's part of the main beltway that encircles New York City in both the states of New York and New Jersey. When we crossed into New York, we entered Westchester County, which has a population of about 1 million per the 2020 census. Established in 1683, it's the southernmost county in the broader Hudson Valley region. The county seat of Westchester County is White Plains, a few miles to our west, and the largest city in the county is Yonkers. Since crossing into New York State, we've been on the New England Thruway, a toll highway, part of Interstate 95, built in the 1950s to connect New York City with southern New England, hence its name. The New England Thruway is a toll road, but it's only a toll for northbound traffic only. Southbounders get to travel the length of the highway for free. Although this road is a part of the New York State Thruway system and has been since its construction in the 1950s. The New England Thruway was completed to traffic in 1958 and is one of the busiest truck corridors in New York State. During the early part of this video, we've been passing through a few different incorporated villages and cities. We've already been through the village of Portchester, population 31,000, the city of Rye, population 17,000, the village of Harrison, population 28,000, the village of Mamaroneck, population 19,000, and the village of Larchmont, population 6,500. We're now in the city of New Rochelle, which has a population of 80,000 per 2020 census figures. New Rochelle is one of the larger cities in Westchester County, and it's really changed a lot since I was a kid. I remember coming down here as a youngster, and you'll see that none of the high-rise structures you see in the distance were even here like 20, 25 years ago. This is all relatively recent development. New Rochelle is home to the New Rock City development, and as I said, these condominium towers are relatively new. The city has really been undergoing a bit of a renaissance in the last 2 decades. So you kind of get the feel of going through a downtown of a major city going through this stretch of the highway. Exit 15 is for US Route 1, the Boston Post Road. Off of this exit, there used to be a diner called the Thruway Diner, which was named for the New England Thruway. And I remember coming here quite a bit as a little kid, because my dad used to work in New Rochelle when I was a kid. So my mom and I would come down to meet him for lunch, and we would very often go to the Thruway Diner, which was right off of this exit. Thruway Diner doesn't exist anymore. It closed about 15 years ago, but there is actually a diner in its place to this day called the New Rochelle Diner, if you ever want to check that out. As we round the curve to the right, briefly passing through the village of Pelham Manor, population 5,800 in the process, we enter New York City, formerly the city of New York. It has a population of about 8.8 million per the 2020 census. By far, it is the largest city in the country. The initial Dutch settlement of what was known originally as New Netherland was established in 1624 on the tip of Manhattan Island, following its initial exploration in 1524 by Giovanni da Verrazzano and in 1609 by Henry Hudson. Since crossing into the city line, we're now in the borough of the Bronx, which is synonymous with Bronx County. It's one of the 5 boroughs of the city of New York. The Bronx has a population of about 1.5 million. The Bronx is home to familiar landmarks such as the New York Botanical Garden, Van Cortlandt Park, the Bronx Zoo, and Yankee Stadium. Now you might be wondering why you're hearing my voice on this video, and in all seriousness, Jason and Carrie asked me to do it for 2 reasons. One is because I grew up in the Hudson Valley region. I live to this day not too far away from where this video takes place. So it's an area I know very well. And secondly, you may have noticed also that we've switched the video to something else. It's not Jason's footage we're looking at. We're actually looking at my footage. Well, Jason had some unfortunate camera issues while he was passing through this part of his I-95 drive. So Jason asked if he could use some of my footage from this area because he knows I live not too far away. So what you're looking at is actually a drive that I took back in November of 2024. And this will hopefully seamlessly transition back into Jason's footage in time for the next video. The New England Thruway comes to an end up ahead here as we reach an interchange with the Hutchinson River Parkway and the Pelham Parkway. At this point, New York State Thruway Authority jurisdiction comes to an end, and we transition back to New York State DOT Region 11 maintenance. As the New England Thruway ends, we now enter the Bruckner Expressway, which is named for Henry Bruckner, a former Bronx borough president and congressman. The Bruckner Expressway was built largely along the original right-of-way of Bruckner Boulevard across the southern and eastern Bronx, which was originally known as the Eastern Boulevard. Up ahead is a rather prominent split where I-95 and the Bruckner Expressway now turn to the southwest, while you can continue to the left here to follow I-695, which is a short connector that'll get you to the Throgs Neck Bridge. This is one of the main ways for traffic in Westchester County to get to far eastern New York City and the borough of Queens, and also the counties out on Long Island. As we turn to the southwest, we're now approaching the Bruckner interchange, which is the single largest interchange in New York City by total area. 5 major highways come together here: Interstate 95, 295, 278, and 678. Additionally, the Hutchinson River Parkway, or the Hutch as we like to call it down this way, they all come together at this one location. The Bruckner Expressway continues to the southwest along what becomes Interstate 278, but over the course of our journey through the interchange, we'll instead now turn to the west and join the Cross-Bronx Expressway. So we're now on the Cross-Bronx Expressway, heading west towards the George Washington Bridge. The Cross-Bronx was built mostly in the 1950s and 1960s, and is one of the most congested highways on the interstate system in the United States. And that is no joke. This road is very difficult to travel at most hours of the day. More often than not, between here and the George Washington Bridge, you would be experiencing bumper-to-bumper traffic. There are some interesting highlights along this stretch. Like, for instance, here we have a underpass where the 6 subway train crosses over the highway at Westchester Avenue. But, I mean, you can see, like, as we go along here, how this highway was shoved into a very narrow right-of-way in a heavily urbanized environment. And I mean, it was a marvel of engineering when it was conceived and built 70 years ago or whatever, but you can see how the constraints around it really prevent any sort of meaningful improvements or expansion that would make this highway workable. As I said, it's a very difficult stretch of highway to navigate. It drives people crazy. You know, you'd be doing very well if your average speed on this was 10 miles an hour most days and most hours of most days. But if you're lucky enough to catch it on an early Sunday morning, which is when this was filmed, you can usually get through at the speed limit. So this is a very unusual experience, getting to see this highway at speed like this. So don't go into this thinking that you're going to see it like this most of the time. You are not. Here's another subway overpass. This is the 2 and the 5 subway lines crossing over. But yeah, you can see how a lot of this road was built in a trench well below ground. So you have retaining walls on both sides. You have 3 lanes in each direction with a decent enough shoulder. But again, there's no real room to expand the highway laterally. So what you see here is basically the same highway that was built and opened in the early 60s. Now, to give you a little bit of a lesson on what's coming up here, because there's going to be a lot of stuff happening in a very short amount of time, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a primer as to what to expect. Up ahead will be the interchange with Interstate 87, the Major Deegan Expressway. That's known as the High Bridge interchange, and when you look at that interchange in aerial photos and on satellite view, it's got a really interesting design because the Deegan is down in the valley below, and so there are a lot of spaghetti-like ramps that connect the 2 highways. It's a pretty neat interchange. And then we have the George Washington Bridge itself, which I'll talk about more when we get there. But in between, the roadways will divide, and we'll be heading for the lower level of the bridge. And trucks are required to take the upper level of the bridge. That was a change that was made post September 11th. Trucks are now forced to use the upper level. So if you're wondering why all these trucks are staying to the left, it's actually because they need to be to the left 2 lanes in order to access the roadway to the upper level of the bridge. At Jerome Avenue, there's another subway overpass. That's where the 4 train crosses over, and that's the line that most famously services Yankee Stadium. So here's the High Bridge interchange. The ramps to I-87 depart to the right. And on the Cross-Bronx main line, you have the choice of keeping to the left for the upper level of the bridge or keeping to the right for the lower level of the bridge. At the same time, the ramps from the Deegan Expressway to the bridge come in on the right. So you can see how this is the cause of a lot of congestion issues at most times of the day. A lot of the times it starts right here. So we're going to keep to the right to head to the lower level of the bridge. This is also the way you would go to access the Henry Hudson Parkway and Broadway in Manhattan. So since we crossed the Harlem River back there on the Alexander Hamilton Bridge, we are now in the borough of Manhattan, which is synonymous with New York County. We're going to be in Manhattan for about 60 seconds, roughly. On the right here, this is where you would exit for Route 9A, which is the Henry Hudson Parkway, and you can also access the local street grid of Upper Manhattan from this exit. There are apartment buildings above us, and there's also a bus terminal that was built above the highway in the 1960s once the highway was completed. As we head downstairs, this is the George Washington Bridge, and we're now on the lower level of the bridge heading outbound towards New Jersey. So the George Washington Bridge was completed in 1931. It opened as the world's largest suspension bridge. It has a center span between the towers of 3,500 feet. The bridge originally had a single deck for 6 lanes of traffic that was expanded to 8 lanes after World War II, and then construction in the late 1950s and early 60s added the lower level, which we're on right now, which opened in 1962. It's one of the busiest bridges in the world to this day, and if you're doing the math by the number of vehicles the bridge carries in a day, this is the world's busiest bridge. I believe it carries upwards of 300,000 vehicles per day on average. At mid-span in the middle of the Hudson River, which is what we're crossing right now, by the way, we enter the state of New Jersey, the Garden State, which has a population of about 9.5 million per the 2020 census. New Jersey is one of the smallest states in America, but it's also one of the more populous, which means that it's the most densely populated state in the United States. Upon entering New Jersey, we entered Bergen County, which has a population of about 956,000. This area that we're in right now as we head back towards ground level is known as the George Washington Bridge Plaza, and this is where all the major highways in North Jersey that funnel into the bridge from the Jersey side sort of converge. And you can see in these first couple of interchanges, we have access points to all of these highways. So for instance, the Palisades Parkway, US routes 1, 9, and 46 depart to the south. New Jersey Route 4 departs to the northwest. But we're going to continue straight and head towards the local roadway of the New Jersey Turnpike here. You can see how if you've never been here before, this can be a bit of a confusing area to navigate because the interstate divides into an express local setup here. So you have express lanes in the middle of the highway, and we're now in the local lanes, which are off to the side. And the local lanes provide the intermediate interchanges in this immediate area. But we're now, once we get out of here, we're now on the New Jersey Turnpike, which was built in the early 1950s originally. It's one of America's busiest toll roads. It was one of America's first superhighways. I mean, I know that the Pennsylvania Turnpike likes to brag that they were the first, but New Jersey's Turnpike was right up there as one of the first for sure. The New Jersey Turnpike connects the George Washington Bridge near New York City with the Philadelphia area. It's really the main highway that connects those two metro areas. The Jersey Turnpike ends at its southern end at the Delaware Memorial Bridge and the gateway to Delaware. Exit 69 is for Interstate 80, which begins its transcontinental journey here and continues west for about 2,900 miles to San Francisco, California. And we'll conclude this video as we turn south on the Jersey Turnpike towards the New Jersey Meadowlands. And I am out of breath. I need to take a break for a little bit. Hope you enjoyed this video and thank you for watching. If you have, why not hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so, leave a like and a comment below. You can also become a 504 Road Trips member like I am, and you can hang out with the cool kids where you get early access to new video content upwards of several days or even weeks before it becomes available to the general public. If you'd like to see more from around the New York City metro area, check out the Roadway Whiz channel, which is my channel of course, where you can see more content from around the New York City metro area, including the entire expressway system and the city street grid, all the highlights, anything you could possibly want to see from around this part of the country. It's up there on my channel, so feel free to check that out. So again, thank you all very much for watching, and I'm going to get out of here before Jason and Carrie catch me with messing around with the microphone, and join them on their next 504 road trip.